Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Tarosian, and this is RamView, the June 13th, 2022 edition. Thank you so much for clicking on. I know I was gone last week. I got two comments. One, it was like, dude, did they cancel your show? Well, no one gets to cancel my show. And the other one is, hey, jerk, where were you? We wanted to hear some talk. So I love it. It was really good. But no, only one gets to cancel my show right now is me. Or at some point, I get banned from YouTube or Facebook or some social media platform. But no, I got busy last week. My day job, as you know, I write, but I also pastor a small church in Burbank, and I sit on a camps board called Granite Ridge. It's a camp up north near San Luis Obispo in California, and I'm oversee youth camps that are run. And so we're getting into that summer season, and I'm a little bit kind of trying to manage my schedule because I've never done this show during the summer, and I've got about 3 camps I'm a part of and overseeing, and so it's going to be a little tricky. But I did get a new MacBook Pro that will allow me possibly to do some shows on the road. I won't have the cool backdrop and stuff, but we're here now. And I wrote a couple thoughts about Travin Howard last week when he got released. The one thing that kind of threw me off a little bit, which I totally get what the Rams are doing, I totally get, and I think I dropped it, from the Ram Cave, was they probably really liked the undrafted free agent Jake Hummel, and that allowed them some freedom. I didn't like the move because I think Howard absolutely has depth to the team. You're running Ernest Jones and Bobby Wagner out there, so provided they stay injury free, you're not going to need much of Howard. But last year kind of proved you needed Howard, and you got an experienced guy who was only making 2.54 rocks. That was the barest minimum tender. And when you're signing Aaron Donald for all his dough and you're signing Cooper Kupp for all his dough, couldn't we just shave off 2.54 to keep Travin Howard? I kind of wish we did. As it is right now with the Howard release, the Rams still have 7.61 rocks, millions under the cap for this year. And that likely translates to some money for Odell. That likely translates to keeping your options open during the season, because as you see teams hit that midway point, that first month of the season, they realize they're not going anywhere and they might want to unload somebody a la Von Miller. And that money that, if it's not used, can be rolled over into the 2023 season. That's the nice thing about the cap. It rolls over. So as of right now, the Rams cap is 9.73 for 2023, which isn't bad. I mean, if you think back where the Rams were in 2019, 2020, and coming out of 2020, we were still paying significant dead money to Jared Goff. We had, you could say Goff was with the team, but it was still dead money. Todd Gurley. And so we had those things we were paying for, or the Rams were paying for. And we don't have anything hovering over our head like that. And so that's where they're at. You would have liked to have seen them shave a little off for Travin Howard. And I'll talk a little bit more about Travin Howard. But Rams are looking good going into next year. So they'll have space. And because all the contract redos have been about one thing, keeping this window open for 2 years, right? And then we'll see what 2024 looks like. But lo and behold, as of right now, the Rams actually have a first-round draft pick in 2024. So who knows? Maybe we'll actually take somebody. Right now, the Rams have 6 draft picks of their own heading into next year. Second round, a third round, 3 6th, and a 7th. That's the Michael Brockers deal. And then likely they're going to get 4 comp picks. And if the standard holds true, that means they'll probably get 2 5ths, a 6th, and a 7th. So they got plenty of draft picks where they've built in the past. And so they'll have 10 total. Also, a second and a third round pick, right? Kind of sounds similar to what we dealt with to bring in Von Miller last season. And so keep your eye on those picks. Yeah, it'd be nice to see the Rams use those picks, but it'll be interesting to see how much they use them to maybe bring in somebody to bolster something during the season or address an issue and a need that happens on the field. Really a bummer, as I've been kind of lamenting, sharing about all spring. It's a bummer to say goodbye to players you love. But if you can say goodbye to Robert Woods, you're going to have to be able to say goodbye to Travin Howard. I like Travin Howard. He's the guy that got the pick. He kind of missed his opportunity a couple of years ago with a knee injury because he was slated to be a to have the best shot at becoming a starter going into 2020. He tore up his knee. But you know, he didn't get that playing time. He was a converted safety. And he fit that new role in the NFL where that coverage linebacker, that off-ball linebacker is kind of like a heavy safety. And a 7th-round pick out of TCU, 7th round, 231 overall at 2018. He was a teammate of Joseph Noteboom at TCU, which is another thing you always watch for in the Rams draft, right? I think I've mentioned this before, where they like one player to school. If there's a need someone can fill, they might very well take same player from the same school. But Howard started 4 games this year, including the playoffs. Of course, he got the key interception. I did like the idea of him being the depth guy, because if anything happens to Wagner, if anything happens to Ernest Jones, you really felt good about Travin Howard stepping up. And so that's where I'm thinking, man, couldn't you find 2.54 somewhere? Couldn't you say, hey, Aaron, hey, Coop, can we work this out a little bit and push this a little bit down the road so we can kind of keep the depth of Travin Howard? But apparently not. And so the first name that came to my mind, and I wrote about it in Ram Cave last week, was Jake Hummel. So keep an eye on him. Other linebackers still on the roster are really special teamers. Jake Gervais, Christian Roseboom, Anthony Hines. None of the players really seem like they should see the field. But also another player to keep an eye on is Justin Hollins. Now, Justin Hollins is an edge player, but Hollins has coverage ability, and I think he has had some experience in being off ball. And so there's a possibility you could see him. I'm not saying it's going to happen. There's a possibility you could see him move inside. All right, as we head into mandatory workouts and then get closer to camp beginning, I'm going to break down the offense today a little bit and defense. I'm not really breaking them down, but just some interesting things to keep an eye on, things kind of like I want to see happen. Bryce Perkins is the guy I'm interested in, because I think Bryce Perkins has more upside than John Wolford does. I know everything's clear. The Rams like Wolford, but Bryce Perkins, I just think he has more upside, and I'd like to see him supplant Wolford as the number 2. It'd be interesting to see if it really stays status quo for two years in a row, almost 3 years in a row, where you have Wolford and Perkins backing up the starting quarterback. Also, everyone's getting hot on Tutu Atwell now, right? You know, the pendulum has swung back, and there's been some articles positive about how good Atwell works. Well, you know, typical Ram fan, right? Now I like Atwell, right? We liked him until he drops the first pass in August, and then we don't like him anymore. But we've been on this since the early spring, late winter. We do think Atwell here. I believe that Atwell can contribute. And right now, with OBJ not on the roster, you got Van Jefferson, Allen Robinson, and Cooper Kupp. And guess who that 4th receiver was last year? He was a burner. And initially at the start of the year, it was Deshaun Jackson. Tutu Atwell's best asset is that he's a burner. And so the idea is he can fit that role, which doesn't require a lot of reps, as we know, but it could be a role for him to play. And I could see it happening. Everyone's hot on Tutu Atwell, but I'm going to move off Tutu Atwell right now. And the guy I'm interested in is a guy named Warren Jackson. Now, you haven't seen Warren Jackson play. I've seen a little bit. Colorado State, a big, tall guy. The Rams brought him in. I think he was in the Broncos organization for a while. And if there's an injury or if something goes on, Warren Jackson's a guy. He's that big receiver type that the Rams seem to be gravitating to these days. Keep an eye on Warren Jackson and this summer and preseason, because if everything goes well, you ain't going to see him during the year. Another thing to keep an eye on is Tyler Higbee. Higbee had the injury, missed the Super Bowl. Higbee's 29 this year. He'll be 30 next season. He's got one more year left on his deal. But if the Rams release him after this year, he's only a 1.4 mil hit against the cap, but he's a 6.25 savings in favor of the cap. And so he's a real candidate to get the old heave-ho when this season ends, unless he does something spectacular. But we're seeing injuries mount up, and we're seeing younger guys, Kendall Blanton and Bryson Hopkins, develop, or Bryce Hopkins. It's not Bryson Hopkins. And so at what point does Tyler Higbee who joined the Rams in their initial season back in LA, 2016, as a draft pick out of Western Kentucky. Are we seeing maybe the last run of Tyler Higbee? And Tyler Higbee is important. I think Tyler Higbee's worth was really proven when he went down at different points during the playoffs and in the season, because he blocks very well. But we saw in playoff time, in crunch time, Kendall Blanton and, of course, Bryce Hopkins in the Super Bowl showcase the reason why the Rams brought him in. So keep that in mind in terms of that you could be seeing the last run of Tyler Higbee. Right now, Logan Bruss, we've seen Coleman Shelton, I've seen Bobby Evans, and right now, if you're looking at PFF and other places, Logan Bruss is penciled in to being the starting right guard for the Rams, their top draft pick, and he's wearing number 60, which I thought was kind of interesting. You got Logan Bruss, a right guard, wearing number 60, kind of channeling some Dennis Hara, who was a right guard and wore number 60 for the Rams for 13 seasons, and All-Pro and Pro Bowl seasons with the Rams. So if the Rams could get a Dennis Hara career out of Logan Bruss, I think we're all good with that. There will be a moment also this year with injuries and the need for COVID to be around, because someone has to have some authority over us. I know that sounds bad, but there will be a moment this year where Rams are going to have to get another look at Alaric Jackson. If you remember, Jackson stepped in when all the COVID stuff hit last year. He played a couple games and he played really, really well. Well, you got Noteboom and you got Havenstein. And Noteboom just got the fat contract. Havenstein is in the last year of his contract. If you look at his stuff on any site about his contract, it'll say he has a couple more years, but those are all void years. He will have been paid, and he is legitimately a free agent at the end of this year, and he's making about 8 rocks. So what do you do, right? At what point, you're not going to pay Havenstein any more than you're paying him now. He's going to be heading into his 9th year. And so I like Rob. Man, everyone should love Rob Havenstein. But in terms of the economics, and if you got a younger guy, cheaper guy in Alaric Jackson developing, keep an eye on Rob Havenstein, that this could be his last run for the Rams. Also, last note, I'm going to talk about defense tomorrow, but in terms of Travin Howard, he hasn't signed anywhere yet. Someone mentioned Washington as a possibility, but the one I'd keep an eye on is Detroit. Detroit. Also, I would keep an eye on the Chargers because you've got the Chargers are bringing in Morgan Fox. They're bringing in Sebastian Joseph Day. They're bringing in Troy Reeder. So Brandon Staley has a feel for these guys that played for him when he was with the Rams. Also, Brad Holmes, the GM at Detroit, that's the place where you can keep an eye on Travin Howard possibly landing. Detroit or Los Angeles with the Chargers. Just wanted to drop that in. And finally, as we're getting ready to wrap this up, as I told you, I'm a writer. My name is Joe Tarosian. You can follow me at JoeT13B, on Twitter at JoeT13B, Instagram, all my stuff there. And I also write books. My books are on Amazon. My football book, as I've said, Tangent Dreams, is Enjoying New Life. And I wanted to get that in there. And finally, a happy birthday to former Rams wide receiver Sean McDonald. He turns 41 today. McDonald was a 4th round, 106th overall pick in 2003 out of Arizona State. He spent 4 seasons with the Rams, caught 106 passes, scored 4 touchdowns. He was a nice receiver. Never was really a starter because throughout his career with the Rams, Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce were still there. You were still running, I think, Prohl for a year, then Kevin Curtis. And so you had these other names that were there that never really provided full opportunity to McDonald. But, he was on the 2014 that made a little bit of a run in the playoffs, won in Seattle, got blown out in Atlanta. But yeah, Sean McDonald had a nice career at the Rams, 4 years, and then was an unrestricted free agent and signed with Detroit. And he caught 79 passes, which was his best season in 2007, 6 touchdowns, and then ended up his career with a brief stint with Pittsburgh in 2009. And but he's 41 today, and you might remember him if you look at old highlights. He wore number 84 with the St. Louis Rams. Okay, folks, that's about it. Thank you so much for clicking on. Thank you so much for asking. I love it. I deserve it. I try to be on every day, Monday through Friday, but I have not doing this during the summer. So there might be a couple of hit and misses, but when we can be here, we will be here because there's always something to talk about when it comes to football, and especially with the Rams. Okay, take care. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.